The first light of dawn found Clara Whitlow walking through the ashes of a burned-out cabin. The smoke had thinned to a gray ghost that twisted across the prairie, carrying the smell of charred wood, and something worse. Memories she couldn't shake. She held a baby close to her chest, wrapped in a soot-stained blanket. The child whimpered softly, his breath warm against her skin. Her arms ached, her eyes burned, but she didn't stop. She couldn't, not while the baby was still breathing. Behind her, the land was flat and endless, miles of scorched grass and broken fences. The wind whispered across the emptiness like a voice trying to warn her. She ignored it. The dead didn't speak to her anymore. The woman she'd served, the rancher's wife, had died 2 nights ago, her face pale as moonlight, her voice shaking as she begged Clara to take the child. Please, don't let him die here. Clara had promised, though she knew the cost. Now, as the sun bled over the horizon, she saw the glint of movement, a rider, far off, cutting across the plain. Her heart lurched. She stopped, clutching the baby tighter. Easy now, she whispered, rocking him gently. It's just another soul, maybe. But the figure grew larger, the rhythm of hooves pounding faintly through the morning stillness. A horseman, broad-shouldered, hat brim low, a rifle strapped behind his saddle. She turned sharply, scanning for cover. Nothing but dead brush and the skeleton of a corral. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The rider slowed as he neared, his horse snorting, hooves thudding against the packed dirt. Dust curled around him like smoke. He was a stranger, his face half shadowed by the low sun. A scar ran from his jaw to his temple, faint but sharp as a blade mark. His eyes were dark, unreadable. You lost? He asked, voice low and rough. Clara swallowed. I'm passing through. He glanced at the baby, brow furrowing. That yours? Her fingers tightened around the small body. He's not. The cowboy's gaze lingered on her for a long moment. The wind tugged at his coat. Then he nodded slowly. You look half-starved. There's a stream yonder. You can rest a spell. I'm fine, she said quickly, taking a step back. He didn't move. You ain't. And that child's hungry. She hesitated. Her throat was dry, her legs trembling. She wanted to trust him, but out here, trust was a currency that could get you killed. I don't need help, she said. He gave a short, humorless chuckle. Lady, everyone out here needs help. For a long, uneasy silence, they just looked at each other, the kind of look 2 people share when both have ghosts behind them. Then, in the distance, a sound cracked through the morning. Gunfire. 1 shot. Then another. The cowboy's head snapped toward the horizon. Clara froze. They're coming, she whispered, her voice thin. He turned his horse sharply. Who? Men from the Whitlow Ranch. They think I stole this child. Did you? No. He met her eyes, something hard in his gaze, searching. Then, without another word, he reached down a hand. Get up. She hesitated, clutching the baby. What? Now, he barked. The thunder of hooves echoed across the flat land. Clara scrambled into the saddle behind him, the baby pressed between them. The cowboy kicked his horse hard, and they shot forward, the wind tearing at her bonnet, dust blinding her eyes. The shots came again, closer this time. Hold on, he shouted. She did, gripping his coat with one hand and shielding the baby with the other. The landscape blurred. Dry gullies, sagebrush, the flash of sunlight on steel as the riders closed in. He veered left, cutting into a dry ravine, hooves pounding like thunder on cracked earth. Bullets whistled overhead, one snapping through a branch inches from her face. Who are they? He yelped. Ranch hands. The master's men. Why chase you? They think I took his heir. He cursed under his breath, ducking low as a bullet grazed a saddle horn. The horse stumbled but kept running. Finally, he pulled hard on the reins, sliding the animal behind a cluster of boulders. Off! Clara slid down, clutching the baby as the cowboy crouched beside her, rifle in hand. He peeked over the rock. 3 riders crested the ridge, dust curling around their horses. They'll find us, she whispered. Not if you keep that child quiet. She rocked the baby, heart-hammering. The infant whimpered once, then fell silent. The riders fanned out. One called out, "Clara Whitlow, give up the boy and we'll let you live." Her breath caught. The cowboy looked at her sharply. "That true? They'll kill me either way." He nodded grimly. "Thought so." Then he raised his rifle. The shot cracked through the morning air, echoing across the canyon. One rider fell from his horse. The others scattered, shouting. Another shot. Another man down. The last one turned tail, spurring his horse hard into the distance. Silence fell, heavy and still. Clara stared at the cowboy, her chest rising and falling. "You killed them." He reloaded calmly. "They were going to kill you." The baby began to cry. He turned toward her, something soft flickering in his eyes as he saw her struggling to calm the child. "Name's Calder Boone," he said quietly. "Used to ride with the army. Now I ride alone." "Clara Whitlow," she whispered. He nodded. "That boy's got lungs. He'll make it if we find food." "I have nothing left," she said. "No home, no work, no one who believes me." He looked out over the empty land, then back at her. "You're heading east?" She nodded. "Then you're going the wrong way." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" He pointed west. "Town's that way. Willow Creek. Small place, but folks there don't ask questions." "Why help me?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Ain't helping you. I'm helping the child." But the way he said it made her wonder. They rode for hours under a sky that seemed to go on forever. By midday, the heat shimmered off the ground, and Clara's lips were cracked from thirst. Calder stopped by a creek that ran thin between the rocks. He dismounted and filled a canteen, handing it to her. "Drink." She hesitated. "I ain't poisoning you," he muttered, then looked away as she drank greedily. He tore a piece of jerky and offered it. She shook her head. "For the baby," she said softly. He studied her, something unreadable flickering behind his eyes. "Baby won't take to jerky," he said. "But there's goats in Willow Creek. We'll get milk there." "Thank you," she whispered. He grunted. "Don't thank me yet." That night, they camped in a hollow near a dry riverbed. Calder built a small fire, careful to keep it low. Clara sat a few feet away, rocking the child. The flames painted her face in gold and shadow. Calder cleaned his rifle methodically, his movements precise. He watched her from the corner of his eye. "You said that ranch burned," he said quietly. "It did." "How?" She looked into the fire. "The master was cruel. He drank, beat his men, and worse. The night his wife died, the ranch hands turned on him, set the place ablaze. I barely made it out." He paused. "You were close to her?" Clara nodded. "She was kind. Treated me like a person, not property." Calder's jaw tightened. "You said she died in childbirth?" "Yes." Clara's voice wavered. She made me promise to take care of the baby. Said his father would come for him one day." The fire cracked softly. Calder's eyes darkened, reflecting the flames. "She say his father's name?" he asked, voice low. Clara hesitated. "No, just that he wasn't a man everyone thought." Silence stretched between them. The only sound was the wind whispering to the canyon and the baby's soft breathing. Finally, Calder spoke. "You done right, keeping him alive. Out here, that's a rare kind of courage." Clara looked up, surprised. "You believe me?" He gave a half-smile, bitter, weary. "Belief don't mean much out here. But I know guilt when I see it. And you ain't carrying that kind." She lowered her eyes. "You don't even know me." He leaned back against a rock, eyes on the stars. "Don't have to. The world makes the same kind of orphans out of all of us." His words lingered in the quiet night. Sometime past midnight, Clara woke to the sound of rustling. Calder was gone. She sat up quickly, heart pounding. The fire was just embers now, glowing faintly. The baby stirred, fussing. Then she heard footsteps returning. Calder appeared from the dark, carrying a small bundle, dried meat, 2 canteens, and a scrap of cloth he'd torn for baby swaddling. "You left," she whispered. "I scouted the ridge," he said. "We ain't alone." Someone's tracking us. Her stomach dropped. The ranch hands. Maybe. Or bounty men. Either way, they'll catch up soon. What do we do? He looked down at the baby, then at her. You'll do what you've been doing. Hold him tight. I'll do the rest. Clara stared into his face, lit faintly by moonlight. There was a hardness there, but beneath it, a sorrow she couldn't name. Something told her he wasn't helping her out a chance. He had a reason. As dawn approached, the prairie turned silver blue. Clara held the baby, watching Calder saddle his horse in silence. She finally spoke. You could have left me back there. He didn't look at her. Could have. Why didn't you? He tightened the strap, then looked up. Because you were holding that child like he was all that kept you standing. Seen that look before in a woman I once knew. Clara blinked. Who was she? He met her eyes, and for the first time his voice softened. The woman I should have saved. He turned away before she could answer, mounted his horse, and offered her a hand. She hesitated, then took it. As the sun rose behind them, spilling gold over the horizon, Clara realized that for the first time since the fire, she didn't feel completely alone. The wind carried the faint smell of smoke still, but it wasn't from the past. It was from the trail ahead. And somewhere beyond that horizon waited the truth. When Clara woke, the sun was already high, burning through the thin layer of cloud that hovered over the plains. For a moment, she thought Calder had left again. Then she saw him by the creek, his broad back bent over his horse, tightening the saddle strap. The baby stirred in her arms. She pressed him close, breathing in that soft, milkless scent of innocence. How far's Willow Creek? She asked when Calder turned. He lifted his hat to wipe the sweat from his brow. Half a day's ride. Maybe less if the weather holds. Will they have food? He nodded, but there was a shadow in his eyes. And men who'd sell their mothers for a coin will keep to the edge. She studied him. Something about his tone, wary, knowing, made her uneasy. Calder Boone didn't strike her as a man easily frightened. When he mounted, she followed, careful to hold the child against her chest. As the horse began to move, the wind whipped through her hair, carrying the faint scent of sage and smoke. She didn't ask why he kept glancing behind them. She already knew. By late afternoon, the land began to change. Hills rolled gently toward a valley scattered with cottonwoods. A few broken fences stood like bones in the dirt. It was quiet, too quiet. Calder slowed the horse. Something's off, he murmured. Clara tightened her grip on the baby. What do you mean? He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded sheet of paper, edges frayed from handling. Found this tacked to a post near the creek. He handed it to her. The print was rough but clear. Wanted, Clara Whitlow, for the theft of the Whitlow infant. Reward, $500, dead or alive. Her breath caught. No, I didn't. I know, Calder said quietly. But the men after you won't care. Her hands trembled. Who would pay for this? The master's kin, likely. The ones who want the boy back. Or dead, to keep the inheritance clean. Tears stung her eyes. I never wanted this. I just want to keep him safe. Calder looked away, his jaw tight. You'd done what you had to. She looked up sharply. And what about you, Mr. Boone? Why do you care what happens to him? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he dismounted, scanning the horizon. Because I knew his mother, he said finally. Clara froze. You knew her? He nodded once. Long before she married that bastard Whitlow. Back when her name was Maggie Thorne. Her pulse quickened. You were sweethearts? Sweetheart's a soft word for the war years, he said bitterly. We were soldiers and sinners, both trying to survive. I went off to fight. When I came back, she was gone. And you found her married. Yeah. His eyes darkened. She sent me a letter once. Said she'd made a mistake, but couldn't fix it. That she had to protect her child. Clara swallowed. So this baby... Calder's gaze met hers. Might be mine. The wind seemed to still. Even the horse stopped shifting. For a moment, Clara couldn't breathe. The world around her blurred. The yellow grass, the blue sky, the steady thrum of her own heartbeat. Maggie said the boy's father wasn't the man everyone thought, she whispered. You think she meant you? Calder nodded slowly. I know she did. Her knees felt weak. Then why didn't you come for her? He looked away, voice raw. Because I didn't think I deserved her. Not after the things I'd done in the war. I figured she was better off forgetting me. He drew a long breath, steadying himself. Guess the world had other plans. They rode in silence after that. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in streaks of red and gold. Calder's words hung between them like smoke that wouldn't clear. Clara watched him as he rode ahead. The way his shoulders tensed, the way his hand never strayed far from his gun. He wasn't just a man haunted by war. He was a man still fighting one. When they finally stopped, it was beside the crumbling shell of an old church. The steeple leaned half-broken, and a cross lay face down in the dirt. Calder dismounted and helped Clara down. We'll rest here till morning. Inside, dust floated in the beams of fading light. Broken pews, shattered glass, a silence thick as confession. Clara laid the baby on a blanket, her fingers brushing the soft curls on his head. He smiled in his sleep, a small, perfect thing that made her chest ache. Calder sat near the doorway, rifle across his knees. His eyes, always scanning the dark, seemed to carry a memory too heavy for words. Do you believe in God? She asked quietly. He didn't look at her. Used to. Then I saw men gut each other over land and whiskey. If he's out there, he's been gone a while. Clara glanced down. Maggie used to pray every night. Even when the master beat her, she never stopped. Calder's voice hardened. She shouldn't have had to. Silence stretched, filled only by the crackle of the dying fire. Then Calder spoke again, softer this time. I buried enough men to know what faith costs. But maybe this child's proof there's still something worth fighting for. She looked up, surprised. The light from the fire caught his face. Worn, scarred, but human again. You sound like a man who wants to be forgiven, she said. He met her gaze. Maybe I am. They didn't hear the riders until it was too late. Hooves thundered outside, echoing through the hollow church. Calder sprang to his feet, rifle in hand. Get down, he hissed. Clara dropped beside the pew, clutching the baby as the door burst open. 3 men stepped in, rough, dust-coated, guns drawn. The leader, a tall man with a black hat and a scar down his cheek, smiled coldly. Well, he drawled. Clara Whitlow, the nurse girl turned kidnapper. Clara's heart stopped. Eli read, she whispered. Calder's jaw tightened. You know him? He worked for the master, before the fire. Red grinned. Worked for him, killed for him. Same thing. Now I'm working for his kin. They want that baby back. Calder took a step forward, rifle steady. Ain't happening. Red smirk widened. You sure you want to die for another man's brat, Boone? Calder's eyes flashed. You don't know whose blood runs in him. Oh, I know enough, Red sneered. The master's wife was a whore for a soldier. You, maybe? Ain't that right? Calder's trigger finger twitched. Clara whispered, Don't. Too late. The gunfire exploded in the small chapel. The first shot shattered the window. The next dropped one of Red's men. Clara ducked, shielding the baby as splinters rained down. Red fired back, the shot grazing Calder's side. He grunted, staggering behind a pew. Blood seeped through his coat. Clara's scream tore through the chaos. Calder, stay down, he barked, firing again. The echo rolled like thunder. Red cursed, diving for cover. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. Smoke hung in the air. 2 men lay still. Red was gone. Clara crawled to Calder's side. He was breathing hard, clutching his ribs. Blood darkened his shirt. You're bleeding, she said, panic rising. Just a scratch, he muttered, but his face was pale. She tore a strip from her skirt and pressed it against the wound. Hold still. He winced, then gave a half-smile. You got fire, Clara Whitlow. She shook her head, tears streaking her cheeks. You could have let them take us. His voice was barely a whisper. Already lost one life I cared for. I won't lose another. The baby whimpered softly between them, as if echoing his words. Hours later, rain began to fall, slow, steady, washing away the blood from the church floor. Clara built a small fire near the doorway, watching the rain turn the dust to mud. Calder sat propped against the wall, his bandaged side seeping through but no longer bleeding. He stared into the fire, eyes far away. "Red'll be back," he said quietly. "Men like him don't quit easy." Clara rocked the baby, her voice gentle. "Then we'll be ready." He looked at her, surprised. "You ain't running?" She shook her head. "No, I've run far enough. Maybe it's time I start standing." He gave a soft laugh that turned into a cough. "You talk like Maggie." Clara smiled faintly. "Then maybe she's still here. Through him. Through you." The rain pattered against the roof, a low, steady rhythm. Calder's eyes drifted closed. Before sleep claimed him, he murmured, "Ash and blood, that's all this land knows. But maybe we can make something new from it." Clara watched him, her heart tightening. She looked down at the baby in her arms, small, fragile, but alive. His tiny fingers wrapped around hers. The fire flickered low, casting a golden glow over them. Outside, the storm passed and the stars broke through the clouds, cold, distant, and eternal. Clara whispered into the night, "We'll find a way. I swear it." The dawn over Willow Creek came red as blood. Mist curled like smoke in the grass, and the air smelled of iron and gun oil. The world felt hushed, waiting. Even the horses stood still, ears pricked toward the sound of distant thunder that wasn't thunder at all. It was hooves. Eli Callan stood by the hitching post, his hands rough around the leather reins, his jaw set hard as stone. His hat brim shadowed his eyes, but the light that crept beneath it showed a man who hadn't slept in days. His shirt was torn, shoulder bandaged from the skirmish 2 nights ago. He'd been running, bleeding, but never far enough to forget the image burned into his mind. The woman with another woman's baby in her arms. Lydia. Behind him, the cabin door creaked open. Lydia stepped out, her shawl drawn tight around her shoulders. The baby, Isaiah, lay sleeping in her arms, the tiniest sigh leaving his lips. Her face was pale, her hair tangled from nights of worry, but her eyes were steady now. They'd seen enough sorrow to stop shaking. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. Eli didn't answer. He tightened the cinch on his saddle instead. "You can still ride east," she pressed. "You can disappear. They'll follow the trail to me, not you." He looked up then, and his gaze held hers, rough, wounded, but full of something that hadn't been there before. "They ain't after me," he said. "They're after what's right. And I reckon I owe the dead some peace before I go looking for my own." Lydia stepped closer, the baby stirring faintly. "Then let me help you." Eli shook his head. "You already have." The first riders appeared by the tree-line, 5 silhouettes against the rising sun. Dust rose around them like ghosts. Whit McGraw rode in front, his white duster flapping, his rifle glinting in the morning light. The man looked like a preacher dressed for Judgment Day. Eli stepped into the yard, revolver low at his hip. He didn't call out. He didn't have to. McGraw swung down from his horse, boots striking the dirt with a dull thud. The others fanned out behind him, faces like shadows carved from hate. "Callan," McGraw called, voice smooth as whiskey, cold as the bottle it came from. "You always did have a taste for trouble. But I'll be damned, you picked a fine cause to die for this time. A woman and a bastard that ain't yours." Eli's thumb brushed the hammer of his Colt. "You talk too much for a man riding to his grave." McGraw smiled. "That right? You figure you're fast enough to prove it." Behind the window, Lydia clutched Isaiah tighter. She could hear the words, each one sharp as a bullet. She saw Eli's shoulders tense, saw the way McGraw's men rested their hands on their rifles. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, but she knew what Eli had told her before dawn. "If they come, you stay put. You don't move till I say so." She whispered a prayer she barely believed in anymore. Eli stepped forward, boots grinding the dirt. "McGraw, you can still turn around. You and your boys ride back. Forget this, and no one else has to die." McGraw chuckled. You forget who you're talking to, boy. I bury what don't belong to me. And that woman, she's harboring a killer's child. The law's clear. Law. Eli spat in the dust. Ain't no law this side of the Rockies, but the kind a man makes for himself. He saw it, the flicker in McGraw's eye. Pride. Anger. That was all it took. The first shot split the dawn. The yard exploded into chaos. Gunfire ripped through the still air. Eli duffed the trough, rolling behind it as bullets shattered the fence rails. With splinters bit his cheek. He drew, fired twice. Hit one man square in the shoulder, another through the thigh. McGraw's men scattered, yelling curses, returning fire from corral and the haystack. Lydia dropped to the floor inside the cabin as glass shattered above her. Isaiah wailed, and she covered him with her body, whispering, "Hush, baby, hush." The smell of gunpowder bled through the cracks in the door. Each shot felt like thunder inside her chest. Eli moved fast, fluid. Every motion born of instinct. He reloaded behind the wagon, counted the remaining rounds. 6 left. Not enough. McGraw's voice rang out between volleys. "You can't save her, Callan. That woman's marked. You take her side, you die with her." Eli's jaw clenched. "Reckon I can live with that." A lull fell, the kind that makes your ears ring with silence. Dust drifted through the sunlight. The only sound was the wind sighing through the pines. Then hoofbeats from the ridge. Eli turned, squinting. 2 more riders were coming. For a heartbeat, fear gripped him, reinforcements. But then he recognized the lead horse. The black mane, the rider with a scar over his brow. Jonas, the old ranch hand who'd buried Eli's brother. He rode hard into the yard, rifle raised. "Get down," he bellowed. He fired before his horse stopped moving. McGraw's man at the haystack dropped like a stone. Jonas swung down beside Eli, breathing hard. "Couldn't let you dance alone, son," Jonas growled. Eli grinned, teeth bloodied. "Knew you'd come." Together they fought like men who'd already died once. Each shot was deliberate, controlled. They moved from cover to cover, forcing McGraw's men toward the barn. Lydia, peeking from the window, saw the tide turn. 2 against many, but somehow she believed. When the smoke cleared, only McGraw was left standing. He stepped from behind the corral, one hand raised, the other holding his rifle loosely at his side. His duster was torn, dusted with blood. His face was pale but defiant. "You think you won, Callan," he hissed. "You think any of this changes what she's done? That woman, she brought death to this land. Every man she's known ends up in the ground." Eli's gun hung steady. "Maybe that's true, but she's the only one ever brought life, too." McGraw's eyes flicked toward the cabin, toward the window where Lydia's face glimmered faintly behind the glass. And in that fraction of a second, Eli saw the twitch in McGraw's wrist. He fired first. The sound cracked like lightning through the still air. McGraw staggered back, clutching his chest. His rifle fell, his knees buckled. He looked up once more, eyes wide, not angry now, just surprised. Then he hit the dirt and didn't move again. The quiet afterward felt unreal. Smoke drifted in lazy ribbons. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of sage and burnt powder. Jonas limped toward the barn, muttering something about graves. Eli stood still, breathing hard, his gun hanging at his side. His shirt was soaked through, sweat, blood. It didn't matter anymore. The cabin door creaked open. Lydia stepped out, Isaiah pressed against her shoulder. Her eyes found Eli's across the yard, full of tears, but steady as ever. She walked toward him, barefoot on the cold dirt. The baby whimpered softly, then fell silent again. "You killed him," she said, not accusing, not relieved, just stating a truth. Eli nodded. Wasn't much choice left. She looked past him to the bodies, to the broken fence, the morning that had turned crimson. "Does it ever end, Eli?" He looked away, jaw tightening. "No, but it can start something new." Later that day, they buried the dead by the creek. The willows leaned low, their leaves whispering over the shallow water. Jonas said a few words, quiet, rough, like the man himself. Lydia laid a single wildflower on the mound. Isaiah reached out from her arms, tiny fingers brushing the petals. For a heartbeat, it felt like grace. When the graves were done, Jonas mounted his horse. "You two best leave soon," he said. "Word will spread fast. Folks don't forget easy out here." Eli nodded. "We'll head north. Maybe over the divide." Jonas tipped his hat. "Find something worth keeping this time." He rode off into the fading light, leaving the sound of his hooves echoing down the valley. That night, Lydia and Eli sat by the fire outside the cabin. The stars burned sharp and clear. The baby slept in a cradle Lydia had woven from willow branches, his breath soft against the hush of night. Eli stared into the flames, his voice low. "When I first saw you, I thought you were running from something." "I was," she said, "but not anymore." He looked at her then, the light flickering in her eyes, the strength behind the gentleness. "You still could. I ain't a-skin you to stay." She smiled faintly. "You don't have to." He looked away, a faint laugh breaking through his chest. "Reckon I never stood a chance." Before dawn, they packed the wagon. The world felt new, raw and empty, but full of promise. The hills shimmered under the first light, and the creek whispered softly beside them. Lydia glanced back once at the cabin. Its chimney still smoking, the land scarred but alive. "Think anyone remember this place?" she asked. Eli adjusted his hat. "Maybe, but that ain't what matters." She nodded. "No, it's what comes after." He looked at her then, the corners of his mouth softening. "You sure you're ready for that?" She smiled. "I was ready the day you handed me that canteen." Eli flicked the reins, and the wagon began to move. The wheels creaked. The baby stirred, eyes fluttering open to the morning. The horizon stretched ahead, wide, wild, endless. Narrator's closing, reflective tone. The frontier as a way of testing the soul, breaking it, reshaping it, and showing what kind of heart still beats beneath the scars. Eli Callan found his reckoning not in blood, but in forgiveness. And Lydia, the woman who once held another woman's baby, found that sometimes family ain't born. It's made in the dust, in the pain, and in the promise of a new dawn. Maybe that's what the West was really about. Not the land, not the gold, but the second chances we carve from the ashes.